Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Omaha Joe Stanton, coming to you on the NBA podcast this morning, Sunday, for a 5-game NBA DFS slate. Of course, it's a new face. You're used to Coach, Crash, Andrew. Coach is preoccupied with the family function, won't be able to record the podcast. And those guys, Crash and Andrew, are focusing on NFL for this morning. So you get me. Big NBA fan. As you know, I've mentioned on the podcast multiple times that I'm from the Denver area. Go Nuggets. Big Jokic. Of course, I have the Jokic bet already out there for him to win MVP this year or a repeat. Unfortunately, they're not on this 5-game NBA DFS slate, but got to give a shout out to my Nuggets. So yeah, I am looking forward to giving you some top picks, top fades, my plays, my breakdown of the 5 NBA games today. And we'll rock with it. It's our first one here, and hopefully many more. And I hope you enjoy the podcast. So before we jump in, be sure to like, subscribe, comment if you're liking the information. We're always on Twitter and YouTube and able to respond to what you guys have going on and any questions you might have. So you can find us at dfscoachtalk.com. We have a variety of packages and also on Twitter at dfscoachtalk. Let's jump into it. We're going to make it quick. We're going to make it easy, get you all the information. So the first game is the Brooklyn Nets at the Detroit Pistons. Obviously, the Pistons are having a year similar to what they have had in the past. They're currently 4-21, while the Nets 18-8. Brooklyn is 13th in offensive efficiency. Detroit is 29th. Likewise, Brooklyn is 6th in defensive efficiency, and Detroit is 24th. So it's a pace-up game for Detroit. The Nets are playing quicker. It's not by a wide margin. The total over-under here is 212. Obviously, some key injury reports for the Brooklyn Nets is that James Harden is going to be out. He's going to get a rest after playing 26 games this season. So obviously, Kevin Durant has to be the biggest chalk on the slate. He's 10-8 on FanDuel, 11K on Draftkings. Detroit has allowed the 9th most fantasy points to power forwards, 7th most fantasy points to small forwards, and obviously Durant's kind of a hybrid. But the main thing is Detroit has just not been good against forwards. And on top of that, Jeremy Grant is out indefinitely. So they don't have an athletic big to guard Kevin Durant. Now, there's obviously the potential that this game can blow out and KD doesn't get the minutes that we expect. However, all the usage is going to be going to Durant on the Brooklyn side. He can just basically feast on the usage of his team. And you have LaMarcus Aldridge, you have Bembry, Mills. Those other guys are okay for me. I'm not personally going to go there. I see LaMarcus Aldridge being, the second option, and where he's priced, you can definitely look there. But I think there's some other guys I like, but obviously Durant's going to be the number one in the lineup for you. On the Pistons side of the ball, Jeremy Grant being out is definitely a blow to a team that just hasn't been, performing well, and Kelly Olynyk is out as well. So I think you look at Cade Cunningham. Jeremy Grant was having about a 26% usage. Same with Cade Cunningham. And I think that usage goes to Cade with Jeremy Grant being out. Brooklyn has been average against point guards. They've allowed 15th. They're 15th in fantasy points allowed to point guards. Both great now. I think Cunningham sees that boost in usage. He's now the top scoring option. So if they do want to keep this game competitive, I think Cade Cunningham has to step up. But the usage can go elsewhere as well. Killian Hayes is definitely an option to look at. Saddiq Bey, I really enjoy. I prefer Diallo on DK because Diallo is about $1,200 less than Saddiq Bey. But I think if someone were to step up, it would be Saddiq Bey. He's been playing really well in the minutes that he's been given. Brooklyn has allowed the 12th most fantasy points to shooting guards and 14th most to small forwards. So I think Saddiq Bey is definitely an option. Of course, filling in for Jeremy Grant being out would be Trey Lyles. He's been okay. The thing is, it can go either way. Sometimes Jackson takes his minutes in the power forward spot. he actually has been getting really decent usage among the active players. He's had 20% usage. I expect his minutes to be above 20. He had 26 minutes in that last game, even with Jeremy Grant playing. So it really depends on who the starter is for the Pistons, who I would recommend there. But I think Kate Cunningham, Sadiq Bey, Diallo are all good plays. I will mention this on the net side of the ball. I think you can also look at James Johnson, who's been stepping up. He obviously had that big game there. Only had 4 points in the last 2 games. But, I mean, as far as the GPP play goes, James Johnson is definitely an option you can look at. Fantastic. So we'll go to the next game. It's the New Orleans Pelicans at San Antonio Spurs. The Pels are 26th in offensive efficiency. San Antonio is 21st. The Pelicans are 27th in defensive efficiency, and San Antonio is 14th in defensive efficiency. The over-under for this game is going to be 219. The Spurs, of course I have to mention this, the Spurs just had a blowout loss to the Nuggets. And going into this one, this is their 5th game in 7 days, which is just absolutely a ton. 4 of those games have been at home. So, hasn't been travel, but just the wear and tear on the body. It's a lot of games to play. So, I mean, Spurs are 7th in pace, and the Pelicans are 21st in pace. So it's an absolute pace-up game for the Pelicans. All of this being said, I love Joe Val in this game. He's 7,700 on FanDuel, 8,400 on DK. San Antonio has allowed the 9th most fantasy points to centers, and Joe Val has just been a pain in the side of the Spurs for so long. Joe Val scored 60 Draftkings points against San Antonio the last time they faced off in April. Jakob Poeltl on the other side just doesn't match well against Joe Val, especially for boards. Joe Val's one of the few centers that does match well against Poeltl and could out rebound him. So for all this being said, I really like Joe Val in this game. The top options for the Pelicans are Brandon Ingram and Joe Val. Brandon Ingram is 8,600 on FanDuel, 9,000 on DK. He has an insane usage rate, but there's a couple other stars that I really enjoy that I want to get to. I don't know if he'll be my second star along Durant, but definitely will look at him. I wouldn't say he's my top tier option like Joe Val, who I really want to play into my lineups. A couple fringe plays. You have Josh Hart, who's been getting really good minutes for the Pelicans as well. You can definitely see him out there. Herbert Jones has been a great rookie for them. Really one of the best of the class, and he's shooting great from 3. Really solid minutes. So a couple fringe plays, Josh Hart, Herbert Jones. On the San Antonio side of the ball, though, I think everyone's healthy on that side of the ball. So I actually think Murray and White are really priced up and not likely to hit value. Keldon Johnson is okay. His price doesn't dictate, a smash spot as well. And he's guarding Ingram. So the place that I would like to go to on the Spurs side would be their bench. Devin Vassell, Lonnie Walker. I actually think those bench guys are going to be huge in this game, given that there have been so many days that the Spurs have been playing in a row. So I think they're going to rely on their bench. And they actually have the second best scoring bench in the league right now. They're a positive net for the Spurs, and the Pelicans don't have a good bench. Their depth is lacking. So I actually think the Spurs are in a good spot. Devin Vassell, he is 5,100 on DK, 4,500. 5,100 on FanDuel, 4,500 on DraftKings. He's in play for me on both sites. In the last 2 outings, he scored 28 and 21 DraftKings points, respectively. The Pelicans bench unit is just shaky. So I think the same goes for Lonnie Walker. I prefer Vassell. I think they're going to get similar minutes. But I think in this kind of game, they can definitely rely on a bench unit for the Spurs. And that's definitely at least where the value is on that side. We are moving right along. I apologize if I'm talking real quick. I'm excited, and it's the early morning, so I already got my coffee in. So we're just moving through. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments here on YouTube or reach out to us on Twitter. Happy to answer them. So next up for us is the Dallas Mavericks and the Oklahoma City Thunder. A 209 over under. The big news is Luka Doncic. Luka is out, and the Mavs have yet to win a game this season with Luka out. But this would be the game to do it against the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Dallas are 22nd in offensive efficiency, and Oklahoma City is dead last. And Dallas is 17th in defensive efficiency, and Oklahoma City is 22nd. So, all things being said, it's definitely a winnable game for the Mavericks. I expect them to win. When Luka is out, a lot of that usage is going to go to Kristaps. Oklahoma City has allowed the most fantasy points to power forwards. Porzingis has averaged 48.72 DraftKings points per game in the last 16 that he's played without Luka. So, a really, really good spot for him to just smash here. And I actually think with Luka being out and the struggles that the Mavericks have been dealing with, I actually don't think it's as much of a blowout option. I think this is one of the games that stays close. Starting for Luka would be Jalen Brunson. Brunson's 5,300 on DraftKings, 5,800 on FanDuel. That's going to be very chalky as well. But rightfully so. He's averaged 28.1 fantasy points over the last games. He's played 29 points per game, and he has a 22% usage rate. OKC is middle of the pack against the point guard position. But I think you obviously have to look at Jalen Brunson as well. Hardaway off the bench is really nice as well. I think a lot of defensive stats can go there for him. But those would be the top three guys I was probably looking at for Dallas. On the OKC side, it's kind of the same spot with the Spurs. Everyone's healthy. So, I mean, you could obviously look to SGA because he's, the guy. But I just like some of those other pay-up options more. Basley is interesting because his price is dropping, and that's because he's not shooting or scoring well. But I don't know if I necessarily want to go there. I mean, the matchup against Porzingis is definitely not a favorable one at the power forward position. So I think it's going to be a full fade of the OKC side tonight. I would say the one guy I would take a serious look at is Giddey. Again, great rookie. They're capping his minutes, but it's high minutes, 30 plus. The thing is, his type of play style, he's very selfless, likes to dish it to guys. It's those extra kind of points, but it's also just like how he holds himself on the floor. And that doesn't necessarily correlate to DraftKings or fantasy points. So as much as I like him, sometimes those points aren't directly correlative across. So I think Giddey's great. But I don't think I'm necessarily going to go to anyone on the Oklahoma City side. I think my focus is on Dallas, Kristaps, Jalen Brunson, and a couple of those guys off the bench like Tim Hardaway. And there are definitely some plays, going forward in the games that we spoke on that I love. They're those like mass GPP plays that I would love to give out to our members. So a good time to mention that. Like I said, you can go to dfscoachtalk.com. We have 3-day passes, 5-day passes, season long. Get you into our Discord. We give out full FanDuel and Yahoo lineups in a DraftKings clipboard for you to build your own lineup. You get to talk with us pros about your questions and who you're thinking for the slate. Like I said, we do FanDuel, Yahoo, and DraftKings. And once you join in our Discord, you get all sports, not just NBA, NFL. Obviously, is going on today. PGA, MLB, you get it all. So check us out at dfscoachtalk.com. Also check us out on Twitter at dfscoachtalk. It's a great place to be. We're giving out insights. We're talking to folks. We just tweeted out something about the Charlotte Hornets and their announcers being the best in the biz, pun intended. And we had Chad respond, say, yeah, I totally agree. I'm not even a Hornets fan, but that's why I watched the game. So yeah, we say some silly stuff over there on Twitter. But yeah, be sure to check us out, give us a follow, and talk to us over on that platform as well. Awesome. So we have 2 games left. And these games, I think, are very dictative on injuries. We'll start with the Portland Trailblazers versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. CJ McCollum is out. Damian Lillard and D'Angelo Russell are both questionable, and that's huge news for this game. Minnesota is 24th in offensive efficiency, and Portland is 10th. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Minnesota is 11th, and Portland is 29th. Portland just has not been playing well. Again, defensively, they're 29th in defensive efficiency. And this game's a 219 over-under. So I think this is a big game to watch for. I think some of those late swaps are definitely going to come into place for these last 2 games, being dictative of the injuries. With Dame Lillard being questionable, I think you can look at him. So if Dame Lillard is out, I think you give a really serious nod to Norman Powell and Yusuf Nurkic. Minnesota has allowed the fifth most fantasy points to small forwards, and Powell has looked really good back-to-back strong performances when Dame Lillard is out. He had 34 DraftKings points against the Warriors, 36 against the Clippers. Norman Powell's just had a good price too. He's 6,000 on FanDuel and 6,200 on DK. So if Dame is ruled out, I think once again Powell is the top scoring option, and you can definitely look there. Like I said, Yusuf Nurkic has also been getting a lot of usage with Dame Lillard being out. He'd be the second scoring option. So he's a really solid mid-level center option, especially on FanDuel. He's 6,100 on FanDuel, 7,100 on DraftKings, which is a little priced up. But Minnesota's allowed the fifth most fantasy points to centers. Nurkic is going to be matching up directly against Towns. But I like it. I think he can really show out. Nurkic has been getting a lot of trust with those top two options being out. I think if Dame's out, a lot of people look to Smith Jr., DSJ. I think he could be bad chalk. He's been really high owned lately, but he's not directly in play for me. And obviously, if Dame plays, I wouldn't look at him either. Also, Simons is back, so that knocks down DSJ. I think someone really interesting to look at would be Nasir Little. If Dame Lillard was to be out, he was on pace for 30 plus minutes. He got injured in the third quarter last game, but he's been playing really well in those minutes. So I think fringe play for me would be Nasir Little on the Portland side. On the Minnesota side, I expect D'Angelo Russell to play, which kind of knocks down a lot of the options for me on the Minnesota side. I would like it a lot more if Russell didn't play, because I think at that point, a lot of the guys are healthy. You don't have as much value opened up. But if we're talking a scenario where D'Angelo Russell is out, you got Anthony Edwards. Portland has allowed the second most fantasy points to small forwards. FanDuel, he's 7,300, 8,300 on DraftKings. I actually probably say he's playable either way. Pat Beverly really steps up if D'Angelo Russell is out, just because of the minutes he's getting since he's returned back from injury. He's been really healthy. So I think that's going to be the news to watch for. Russell's out. I really like Pat Beverly. Malik Beasley off the bench is the best scoring option there. I want to get to the Timberwolves side of the ball because the Portland team is just so bad defensively. And I think this one, I don't expect good defense in this game. I think it can absolutely keep up with a high pace and a high total. So that's the news to watch out for. I think I'm going to get both sides of the ball. I really like this game. I think the great thing about this slate is you have the 5 games, and there's no really bad game to absolutely stay away from. Sure, there's certain sides of the ball that you don't want, but I really could look to every game on this slate and say, yeah, there's a couple folks that I want to get to. So awesome. Okay, going into the last game, we have the Orlando Magic at the LA Lakers. LeBron is probable to play. I expect him to play. Russell Westbrook is healthy, and Anthony Davis is questionable to play. I think, obviously, if all three of those guys are healthy and active, I don't necessarily want to go and play either of those guys. The thing is, the over-under of this game is 220.5. Orlando is 28th in offensive efficiency. The Lakers are 23rd. And Orlando is 28th in defensive efficiency, and the Lakers are 13th. So both offenses haven't been performing the way, I would say the Lakers expect to have a better offensive efficiency. The over-under makes sense for this game. I definitely think it's the one that could blow out. The bummer is the value. So, if Anthony Davis is out, I think LeBron James becomes a little more playable. He's 1,100 on FanDuel, 10,800 on DraftKings. Orlando's allowed the second most fantasy points to power forwards. And so if AD sits, LeBron will be up with like KD as a top play on the slate, and it will just come down to which of those guys you prefer. If Anthony Davis plays, I think this game is a blowout risk, and I would not play LeBron. I would rather go to Kevin Durant. But I think on the Lakers side of the ball, Horton Tucker He's 5,100 on FanDuel, 4,900 on DraftKings. He gets a lot of usage in blowout games, especially if some of those guys are out. He's even starting. So Horton Tucker, I think, is a really good play for me. A safer play on this side of the ball because I think blowout or a close game with some people out for the Lakers, he performs really well. So Malik Monk, I would also say he's in play. He's 4,800 on FanDuel and 4,500 on DraftKings. Orlando has allowed the second most fantasy points to shooting guards. So, that's why both of those guys are in play for me as value. I think on the Orlando side of the ball, if they need to keep it close, you have to look to Cole Anthony. 8,400 on FanDuel, 8,200 on DraftKings. The Lakers have allowed the fifth most fantasy points to point guards. I think Cole Anthony, the usage that he's been getting has been absolutely unreal. Definitely a step up season for him. And I think you look to him to perform, to keep it close. It's obviously the 220 over under, the highest on the whole slate. So I definitely think that's an option there. I think another option in Orlando that I really like is Terrence Ross. He's 3,700 on DraftKings, 4,300 on FanDuel, which is really good value. He's averaged 17.6 fantasy points per game, 25 minutes over the last couple. So I think with Ross, Orlando tends to keep him out there for the fourth quarter to finish the game if he's having a really good game. And the Lakers have allowed the fifth most fantasy points to shooting guards. That's why I like Terrence Ross. Gary Harris, for the same reason. Gary's 4,600 on FanDuel, 3,900 on DraftKings. The difference between Gary Harris and Terrence Ross, because I've seen Gary Harris play for the Denver Nuggets for a little while, is that Gary isn't the one to take over a game. He's a little more passive in his play. He's a great scorer, a really nice dude. But Terrence Ross is that type of player who's, feed me the ball. I'm cooking, I'm hot. So I tend to go with Terrence Ross on that side of the ball, but I think you look at Cole Anthony mainly for the Magic to keep pace with this high-scoring game on the slate. Awesome. Well, that is wrapping up my breakdown of tonight's and today's NBA DFS slate. It's an hour early lock because it's a Sunday. But like I said, the 5 games are really going to be enjoyable. The last 2, I think, are really important to look out for injury. Portland and Minnesota, and the Lakers and Orlando. But other than that, again, drop a like, drop a subscribe, leave a comment. We're happy to respond. And go check us out at dfscoachtalk.com. Hop in our Discord. There's going to be a couple plays we're saving for our members. And like I said, we're going to be giving out the full FanDuel lineups and DraftKings. If you're seeing this in the morning, be a great time to jump in now because you're going to get a full day of NFL and the full day of NBA. So that is it for me. Initial podcast. My name is Omaha Joe on behalf of DFS Coach Talk. Thanks for tuning in and join us as we look to crush it in NBA DFS. Have a great Sunday, everyone.